Thank you, Kenwood. Can you all hear me at the back? Well, as you can see, a kind of a Wagnerian atmosphere has engulfed the pod. And I'm afraid the story or the narrative that I'm going to recount to you hardly has the kind of symphonic wholeness of Wagner or the coherence of such a tradition of epic music. It's probably closer to Karlheinz Stockhausen, the dissonance and the atonality of postmodern music. When we try to enumerate what the canon of art of any society might be, the mere attempt to do so is a political act. It's political in twofold. Political by the inclusion of works, and by implication, political by the exclusion of works. So whatever we list as being canonical to a society would be political. But by that very token, because we have listed some works as canonical, we had to exclude other works. And that too is political. And for a society like Singapore, which a mere 5 or 6 years ago refused to accept space for the political within art, because there was this notion that art was somehow apolitical or had to be apolitical or not to be of politics. This very act of trying to be canonical is supremely political and therefore supremely subversive. So we are all now a subversive assembly. I could list for you the plays in the English language which should be taught in a school curriculum or in the university. I could list for you plays that young people ought to read. But somehow, in the context of Singapore theatre, such a listing would barely constitute the definition of the canon. The reason for this is that the canon for Singapore theatre is not the canon of one language. And anyone who tells you that the English language theatre in Singapore is the theatre of Singapore has got no clue or understanding of the history of theatre in Singapore. If we are to be honest, and if we are to be attentive to our own history, then the theatre in Singapore consists of the languages, at least of the 4 official languages, which means that we have to take into consideration the theatre of the Chinese language, the theatre of the Malay language, and the theatre of the Tamil language, at the very least. Because within Indian theatre, there are numerous other languages which have been heard on stage. Within Chinese language, there is, apart from Mandarin and Putonghua, numerous dialect languages that have been heard on stage. Within the Malay language itself, there are numerous inflections of Bahasa of the Nusantara region, which has been heard on stage. So, the very act of trying to define a canon of theatre defies such an attempt. It's almost impossible to try to define the canon, unless, of course, the canon has got some other predetermined reason. And there are very good predetermined reasons. You need to teach English literature. You need to teach theatre. You need to have some kind of education for children. And for all of these specific purposes, you may have a listing which classifies some of these works, which are necessary for schooling, for studying, for passing of examinations. But if you are to truly understand the art of theatre in Singapore, no such canon would ever be complete. This is the first thing I think you have to accept. There will always be an incompleteness about the set of works which constitute the canon of Singapore theatre. This is both a strength and a weakness for the theatre of Singapore.